I appreciate the invitation, and I hope that what I have to talk about today can resonate with you. Some part of my story, and I'm going to tell you it's my story, but hopefully parts of it will make you think. But most importantly, I want you to be able to find your voice to tell your story, or to find some hope in those dark times. So as the Colonel had said, I have been a member of this wonderful Air Force for my entire life. My dad spent 32 years active duty in Intel, and we moved every 2 years. It was a fabulous life, lived all over the world. And something my parents instilled in our family, I have a younger brother, was no matter where we lived, we got embedded in our community. Whether it was Omaha, Nebraska, or Okinawa, Japan, San Vito, Italy, or San Antonio, Texas. If you're in a place for 2 years, you get those boxes unpacked. You find out who your neighbors are. For us, we did some church shopping each time, and we got involved. Because you never know in your community, whatever that may look like, whether it's your military community, your church, your school, your bunco group, your Texas Hold'em group that you meet once a month, whatever that community looks like, they come alongside of you when you need them. Because we don't know ahead of time. Life is a tough teacher. We get the test first, and then we learn the lesson. And a lot of times it's a pop quiz, and we don't always get an A, or B, or a C. Sometimes we fail that test. But we live in a world of acronyms, and I learned that FAIL is an acronym. First attempt in learning. First attempt. That doesn't mean that you aren't going to fail again, but we learn from our mistakes. So my identity as a high schooler in Wiesbaden, Germany, was as an athletic student. Athletics was more important to me than being a student. Now, granted, I was a very good student, but athletics was more important. And so my schedule, my junior year in high school, was I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to tennis practice, go to my junior year in high school, and then go to golf practice because it was golf season. That was my schedule. My parents did not set that schedule for me. I am a type AAA, plus. And an uber extrovert. So I know that when I walk into a room, I can suck the air right out of an introvert's lungs. And I have to be very careful about that. In October of 1983, it was a month before my 16th birthday, I played Steffi Graf. She was 98th in the world of tennis. She was 14. And she went on to become the #1 tennis player in the women's tennis circuit for 7 years, and she changed the face of women's tennis before Serena Williams. And I beat her. So proud. I had my life scheduled. I loved golf, but tennis was my #1 passion. So after college, I was going to go on the tennis circuit. Well, 2 weeks after tennis, playing Steffi Graf, I won the golf championship for all the DoD high schools in Germany. And I beat the #1 boy by 5 strokes, so I was more proud of that statistic. I loved golf too. Very competitive, and I still am. A week after that, it was 6 days before my 16th birthday and 9 days after the Beirut bombing of the Marine barracks, I had a massive stroke on my right side. I was born with a malformed vein that burst. The doctors told my parents that if I lived, I would never walk again. I don't walk very gracefully, necessarily, but I don't take no for an answer very easily. It took me 1.5 years to learn to walk after I had brain surgery in San Antonio. Launch Duel they were tag teaming because of the Marines and those affected by the bombing. I learned to write with my left hand, so no longer right-handed. But I lost my identity. I was an athlete. To not be able to walk, to have to get up in the morning, crawl to the bathroom to brush my teeth, and then crawl back because I didn't want to get in the wheelchair, and take a 3-hour nap. I was exhausted. And I went through that depression because my body didn't work. My mind did, but my body didn't work. So my parents would be driving down the Autobahn 125 miles an hour, and I would all of a sudden tell my parents, I want to open the car door right now and jump out. And that's when we started conversations. We didn't know that I was going to go through what they call post-stroke depression. But I certainly did. And it was our community that came around and supported me and my family during that time. I was able to graduate on time. Now, my scholarships were taken, my golf and tennis scholarships. But I ended up getting a full scholarship to the University of Texas in Austin. Don't hold it against me. Because we were Texas residents when we had lived in San Antonio. Because at the time, UT was the largest university population-wise, we had 53,000 students. I hung out at the ROTC building. I couldn't join the military myself, but that's where I felt more comfortable, was at the ROTC building. So yes, I was one of those that hung out over there. And went to a party my junior year, and being that uber extrovert, I scanned the room and there was one person that I didn't know. And that was Kristen Christy. And I made a beeline right to him. And I said, hi, my name is Kristen Anderson. I said, hi, I'm Kristen Christy. We would never get married. I don't take no for an answer very well. He saw the confused look on my face, and he said, you would be Kristen Christy. Well, 5 months later, we were engaged. 2 years later, we got married. He went off to Vandenberg to missile training, and our first assignment was up in Grand Forks, North Dakota, where we had our first son. Spent 4 years there, a great place to raise a family. And we got embedded in our community. And that community helped us later on, as you all know, I'm sure your spouses have told you too, those TDY gremlins, we just had alert gremlins. I was 8 months pregnant with our first child. He was fully alert, and the basement flooded. You know, those type of things where those gremlins come out. And our community rallied around each and every one of us. So we were fortunate enough to get an assignment to Schriever Air Force Base. It was Falcon then in Colorado Springs. And we moved there in 95, and we had our second son, Benjamin, there in Colorado Springs. And in 97, Don came home one day and he said, you know, I think I want to separate from active duty. And I was shocked. I didn't know any other way of life. What are you going to do? And he told me about the reserve. So Afric was going to stand up the 310th Space Group out at Schriever, and they wanted Don to be the executive officer and be a plank holder for the 310th. So he was a TR. He worked as a contractor out at Schriever as well. And then he became an ART, and then an AGR, and then an ART, and then an AGR. All that flip-flopping. And he became commander of 19 SOPs. So it was the largest squadron in the reserve in the early 2000s. And they helped run the GPS out of Schriever. In 2003, he came home, and he was asking my permission, but he said, I've been tasked with getting volunteers to deploy to Baghdad. And I don't feel right asking for volunteers if my name's not the first one on the list. So you have supervisors and you have managers and you have bosses that will say, go. A leader will say, let's go. And I was so proud of Don that day. I don't interact with him at work, but I could see he was a leader. Out of that whole list, he was the only one chosen. In 2004, he was deployed to Camp Sather at Baghdad Airport. He was second in command of the airport. And he had experiences that I will never understand. We call those sacred spaces, because we communicated about those. I think communication is very important, especially on a deployment. Communicating with your family. They don't need to necessarily know everything, and they can't. But I think that there needs to be some communication, that they understand that you go through things that you just need their unfailing support on. And the same with the home front. And we had those conversations. I did know that he was in charge of the human remains, to make sure that each of those flag-draped coffins has a dignified, respectful transport to Dover. And he came back different. He didn't have that glint in his eye that pulled me to him at that party. And I tried to find resources, but in 2004, things have changed a lot in our military since then. There are resources available without repercussions. But we kept going. We tried to communicate. I tried to communicate, but he was different. So in 2005, he was chosen for Army War College. We thought, Carlisle, great. I'll become bilingual. MOS equals AFSC. F and G crosses all the services, I'm just saying. And it truly was a wonderful year. We met some great people again. It was our community from all branches of the service that came together. You all have rallied around together. You've had accidental deaths. And I'm just saying it out loud. I know it's uncomfortable, but this subject's uncomfortable. But conversations need to be had. So what have you done to help yourself? And what have you done to help your community, your military community? Because we have to do it together. So there's another saying, I'm full of one-liners. Unfortunately, they aren't online. And I don't know who said this, it wasn't me. But I'm going to say it now. It takes nothing away from a lit candle to light another candle. If you think about it, I love Christmas Eve service at church. We have one candle. Turn off all the lights. Everyone has a candle and we pass that light. This little light of mine. And it illuminates the entire sanctuary. It takes no wax, no wick, no fire away from that original candle. How can we be that candle for everyone? For one person even, not everyone. There's this statistics from a few years ago, and it's changed a little bit, but the statistic said that the average person has 44 people within their sphere of influence. With social media, it's more like 250. But 44 people that you have eyeballs on a regular basis, that you can touch, that you can have influence on a lot more than on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. So if you help one person, you're helping 45. And it's exponential from there. When one person has a tragedy, whether it's suicide or a death of some kind, it affects at least 44 people. For the rest of their lives. So as a community, we come together to help each other. There are so many resources available. Your first shirt. They're all about people. That's their job. We've got airmen and family readiness. We have key spouses. So as a key spouse, I understand there's confidentiality. My husband does not know about phone calls that I receive, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But I try and balance from what our service member needs to what the community has to offer. Airmen and family readiness, hotbed of resources. Military One Source. There are proactive resources, and then there are reactive resources. My kids benefited from TAPS after their dad's death. But you don't have to do it alone. So I wanted to bring the story of our family, what's left of it. And I will add, 4.5 years ago, I married Sean. We met on Match.com. It does work. And he has been a great source of support. His brother is schizophrenic. His mom was a psychiatric nurse. I'm like, thank you, Lord, for bringing this man who understood the mental illness that my son was going through. So life does go on, and my attitude has been my greatest weapon system. And this next slide shows you some of the pictures, some of the great things I've been able to do this year as Air Force Spouse of the Year. We had lunch with the Pences. I meet with Mrs. Pence every 4 to 6 weeks on the phone or in person. I've been nominated to attend the State of the Union this year on the 22nd of January. I'm wearing the same outfit in one of those pictures, excuse me, but I've had a chance to meet with Chief Wright and his wife and work with them. These are all the branch winners over here, and we threw out the first ball at the Kansas City Royal game. And then I was interviewed by Bubba Wallace, who drives the NASCAR, the Air Force NASCAR. So some fun stuff. Secretary Mattis, Secretary Wilson. I would give all this up to have that first picture back with my family in burnt orange. But there's hope. Hold on, pain eases. And your attitude is your greatest weapon system. So I want to be a resource for you all, in whatever capacity that looks like. You've got resources here, but just know that I'm another resource for you if need be.